Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ignited Minds. Today, we will be hosting a podcast with an esteemed economics professor, Professor Nikhil Mathur. Could you please introduce yourself and maybe what you do?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Pranav, for asking me to join you today. I'm very excited to see where this conversation leads. A little bit about myself is I'm a professor of finance at Minerva University. So I teach primarily in the strategic finance track, and I've been there for a few years now. And I'm happy to share any views that are my own with you and your audience.
So, today we'll be looking into the integration of artificial intelligence and education, and how professors across various disciplines, including economics and finance, have felt this impact on their teaching methods. In recent years, AI has emerged as a very transformative force and has redefined how educators can engage with students and how students have been able to enrich their own learning experiences. So, as a professor, how has the integration of AI affected your teaching methods?
For me, they haven't affected it quite as much as I would think in a traditional kind of classroom where you have a lecture-based system and it's very much about performing on certain key evaluative measures like an examination or some sort of take-home exercise. And I think the key difference there is educators and I think universities have to really think about their methodology and particularly their pedagogy. It's how do you teach and how do you engage learners? So one of the key things that at least at Minerva that we do differently is that we teach habits of mind concepts. So these are sets of key core ideas with transfer. So we teach you one set or a particular type of idea, and then the concept is how do you use that in different circumstances to solve different problems? And so some of that is aided very well actually with previous tools like Google search, Wikipedia, and then aided even more with more cutting edge AI tools. So I'm really quite optimistic that in the right sort of set of policies, the right set of classrooms, that we can really engage with these new tools, that they're actually useful for the student and for the learning environment. So in some ways, it's impacted me. I suppose when students feel a crunch of time and they want to substitute preparation, um, and they use that to augment. And so I guess then the differentiation becomes intentional versus unintentional plagiarism. And so when you're using ideas that are not your own with intent, that seems to be the largest problem that I would have, because I'm really trying to engage with what the student thinks and what they can contribute to the classroom environment.
I guess these is definitely like counterproductive to teaching, when you say.
If used poorly, it is, but that can be said with most anything.
Yeah. Have you seen any advantages to using these AI-driven tools in helping students learn?
Absolutely. If it can increase efficiency, if you're thinking about the inception or ideation process, having a peer tutor to help you work through difficult concepts. So all those kinds of things that we would want to see students engage with in terms of autodidact or self-learning, there's just a lot of really great potential there.
How do you think professors would be able to maybe get a balance between using these different AI for positive educational purposes versus negative, unintentional plagiarism, as you mentioned, and also maintaining like a human touch in teaching?
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I have to say that has nothing to do with professors. It has everything to do with the learner. It has everything to do with the student. Um, that's a much deeper question for the learner, and I would phrase it something along the lines of how does using any type of tool align with your values and goals? So, does it enhance your learning or does it diminish it? Does it cause conflict with respect and honesty? And it can be really tricky, a very tricky space, because it's not always easy to know when a tool like AI enhances or diminishes your learning. So that's where I would asked the student that it's more incumbent upon them to really clearly identify what their goals and what their takeaways need to be and where that leads them, and to take control of their educational journey. And that's a much harder thing to do. And that actually has nothing to do with the classroom. And actually, a lot of learning sometimes doesn't have anything to do with the classroom. It's about the individual learner.
Yeah, having people try to find the balance their own on how they can use AI is definitely an interesting point that I didn't think about before. Uh, with this rise of AI, how do you think that students themselves have, as you mentioned before, unintentionally or intentionally plagiarized? Have you used any AI to kind of counteract this uh, own AI plagiarism, such as detecting academic dishonesty with students' assignments?
Yeah, I mean, there's some like counter tools out there, Turnitin or this and that, but really, like, I end up reading a lot of this stuff that people submit, and you can kind of tell when things are off in terms of their audience and how they're phrasing it, or what they're bringing in, or how they relate the content with how things are framed in the classroom or the tools that are used. So in that way, I guess I've been trying to be my own plagiarism detector, but I haven't really been great at using tools for screening, because I want to assume that students are using it in alignment with their values and that they're representing their own ideas.
You mentioned you didn't really use it, but do you think if others use it or you may want to try it in the future, there might be any privacy concerns with having AI kind of monitor a student's work?
What do you mean monitor then?
Like having access to a student's work and just like being used against it.
Doesn't that already exist?
Yeah, I guess it does, but how do
I mean,
you
there's all kinds of learning management systems out there. People submit onto Blackboard or Sakai, or centralized uploads, things like that, anyways, right? So it's maybe one step beyond that, which is scanning and trying to decipher the student's work. But I can't imagine that it's too far away from systems that already exist.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you think students can do you think institutions might want to try to prevent these students from using AI, or do you think it'll be based on what a professor feels like?
What do you mean?
Like, do you think it'll stop at the professor level, or do you think will the professor have the opportunity to decide if students should be able to use AI based on their own benefits or harms, or do you think institutions might want to get involved?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Because at an institutional level, you have to have a consistent and equitable policy. And I think that, again, that these tools are so nascent, and yes, they're pervasive, but it's hard to say with any consistency what rules and how should apply. I think what we do have is a lot of sense of how do you think about, and how do you, what are the sort of guidelines that students should follow that represent their own work. So I can't imagine that the policy would differ, because from that foundation. But in terms of a university policy versus a professor's policy, at least at my institution, a lot of it is at the faculty level and individual level, because actually an AI tool or any tool used in every field is so different and it looks different. Let's say, obviously, in CS, something that helps you generate code or solve an assignment versus a math based course versus a business college course or an economics course or even humanities. So the outputs that are generated are different. And so there just has to be sort of a nuanced policy, but none that differs so much from the basic concept of plagiarism, intentional plagiarism.
So I know AI is very diverse and can be used in so many different ways to answer a wide variety of questions. But uh, for your own assignments, have you ever maybe tried to design an assignment based on AI or minimizing the use of AI?
Yeah, so actually this semester I'm teaching a entrepreneur, effectively what's an entrepreneurial finance class. And I hope the students are using AI tools, especially in that ideation phase, thinking about their research of the competitive landscape, the industry, trying to get a sense of who their competitors are, and then from there doing a deep dive into their financials and trying to get any lessons learned from the company. So just like a Google search or anything else, like I think it's actually a great tool for that type of assignment. And so I've definitely revamped the structure so that students know that they should be using these tools, because in the future it's not going to be about AI or any tool replacing workers, but it's about which people know how to use these tools in the right way.
Yeah, I think I would say giving students the ability to use AI on assignments and essentially telling them to do so would help take away like the plagiarism aspect, and they wouldn't want to do it secretly. Instead, they would need to do it for the assignment, and designing the assignment around this and having them learn more with using AI can essentially help the future where AI might be used on a lot of assignments. What do you think?
Absolutely. And I think maybe actually going back to the whole idea of a university versus professor faculty level policy, probably, and actually this is what's happened in my university, is that we just require a statement, an AI reflection statement, in which students think about how they used different tools to construct their assignment or submission or whatever it is, just so that at least they're thoughtful about it and that they understand what they're doing and why.
Yeah. So segueing away from using it in teaching and universities, how has artificial intelligence been used in the field of finance and economics?
Well, it depends on the question, right? So the object, what is your dependent variable? So oftentimes in finance, if you're looking at equity markets, people want to understand price and the movements. So just like people were developing algorithms 5, 10 years ago, now the algorithms I assume are going to become more robust and more have more power in their prediction. So it's probably the same sets of questions, but again, a new set of tools.
So do you see it as more positive or negative to have AI be more integrated with these different fields?
In what way?
I guess to both help people like you who are in the area of finance and economics, but also in a way that it could maybe take away jobs from people who are also in the same sector.
I feel like it's a really broad question, and we can whittle that down. So who are the people that we're talking about, and what kind of skills are we concerned about?
I guess just analyzing like different types of uh, for economics, like the economic landscape, where economics, like economic teachers are trying to predict how the economy might function in different ways. How do you think AI might be beneficial or negative to this?
Well, if AI can help us understand macroeconomics and phenomena better, then it should get a Nobel Prize, presumably. But if we're using it to substitute our own thinking, rather than maybe be more efficient in our depth and quality of research, I'm not quite sure. It still feels like a very broad question.
Hmm. I guess we could specify it to maybe trading strategies. How do you think AI could contribute to developing trading strategies and any risks with this?
Well, there's all kinds of trading strategies. Like if you go to Robinhood, no, not Robinhood, it's Thinkorswim. If you go into that, I think it was Ameritrade, but now maybe Charles Schwab or something. They have list after list of trading strategies. And so then it's about maybe an automated trading strategy. And so that's actually not quite different from what we currently have. So in terms of a whole new class of trading strategies, I'm not quite sure what that looks like yet.
So, what do you think in the future AI might be able to continue to shape finance and economics as opposed to what it's doing currently? Where do you think it could go in the future?
Mm, probably helping us compute larger sets of data with larger n
Mhm.
and trying to parse out some meaning or patterns. I think that's just one sort of more obvious way it could be used. Probably just to investigate the same sets of questions. And of course, again, it goes back to purpose. If you are a trader, if you're a regulator, if you are an economist, if you are whatever your position is, that it can be a useful way for you to more quickly get to a plausible set of results and be able to analyze and have clear takeaways. So
So,
hopefully the efficiency is addressed.
so essentially, as data keeps growing and more and more data is being used to help predict these different types of, I guess, economic situations and strategies, AI will just help kind of make it more efficient and manageable.
I would think that would be a reasonable way to think about it, without becoming too sort of optimistic or overly maybe going beyond what would be recognizable.
Yeah. How do you think your own colleagues and other professionals in this field can stay up to date with the latest developments of AI as it's increasing in importance and it may help them remain competitive in this field?
Dive deep with what you're interested in. Get dirty with it. Go and start Google searching. Go to the weird places of Reddit. All that kind of stuff that people do to learn things. Whatever sort of things that you're interested in. That trying to figure out how to use these tools. What are the tools that are actually useful for you to solve what problem? I think necessity is often the greatest motivator. And so it's more about trying to identify and then use these generative tools in your own area and becoming just more familiar with them and becoming more aware of it. I think the whole part of this movement is that technology is able to become more accessible to broader groups of people. It may not pan out that way, but probably the best advice is just start using it to solve your own problems. And my toddler just sat in the room. If AI can help me with that, that would be wonderful.
What advice would you give to any current students that you may have, or any that are interested in pursuing your own field in this growing area?
um, my advice for students:
A piece of advice that you would give your current students.
ask why 5 times.
Hmm.
Why is something important to you? Why? And try to whittle it down to the underlying intrinsic motivator. And so then you get past irrelevant content and irrelevant skills and try to go directly to what your goal is. And that should dictate your path. So if you're fundamentally interested in something, you should want to get to the core of that's probably going to be the most valuable guide. And the tools and the content that you pick up on the way are secondary to that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and opinions on AI in your own classroom and also in the field of economics and finance. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Always feel free to reach out with any questions. I'm happy to share with you my email address and contact, just to keep the conversation going. And I hope that this has been something of use to you and your audience. And thanks for reaching out, and I'm happy to spend the time.
Yeah, I learned a lot about how both the teachers might have used and how it could be helpful in the future. And uh, it was a unique experience. Thank you so much for spending time to answer these questions.
Thank you, Pranav.
Thank you.